Next up, we've got Kevin Kelly. Kevin Kelly, I've been working with him for 6 years. We've become pretty good friends. He's I consider him one of our champions down in Orlando. He's kind of our guinea pig too. Whenever we have something we want to test out that we're not sure how it's going to work out, we're like, hey, Kevin, you got a pilot for us? And he's like, yeah, I'll figure something out. So he's seen everything, every iteration over the years. And welcome, Kevin Kelly.
Thank you. Thanks, Kurt. Well, like Kurt said, my name's Kevin Kelly. I'm with Florida Applied Products down in Orlando, Florida. So I'm with Florida Applied Products down in Orlando. A little background about me. I started my career with in 1998 with Trane up in Boston. So I'm from Massachusetts, started with Trane in 1998, moved down to Orlando in 2005. So I did about 7.5 years with Trane. Worked for a couple manufacturer reps in Orlando. And started in 2005 with Temtrol, selling Temtrol, Nortec, all the Nortec products, Hunt Air. So I did a lot with fan walls, custom air handling units. So my background, where I feel strongest, is in the air side, the custom air handling unit market. Did a few retrofits with AC fans, VFDs, cubes, et cetera. And then in 2015, I went to another rep and had the opportunity to introduce to Q-PAC, which, in my opinion, is the best manufacturing company I've ever worked with. And I'm not just saying that because I'm here. These guys know it. And that brings me to here on stage talking to you guys. So our agenda today is going to be who are our customers? How do we go to market? We'll talk about some field surveying and sizing. We'll talk about some rules of thumb and some design clearances, some things I can teach you if you don't know what to look for when you're retrofitting an air handling unit. And then I put some sample projects in at the end. So I've got some projects specifically that I pulled out with some pictures that I can show you a few different things that are not so typical to look for and try to help you understand where to go from there. So who are our customers? In my opinion, at the end of the day, everybody's our customer, right? But we're contractors. I put them in the list of, in my opinion, the list of order where I target, who I go to market with. And contractors is where I started, right? Started specifically with service contractors. Going to service contractors. A lot of big contracting groups have an SPD group or small special projects group. They're also good to start with because they're getting into retrofit, they're getting into the replacement market. So I deal with owners a lot. I call on hospitals, I call on universities, I call on the amusement parks, I call on everybody, hotels, if there's an opportunity to call on hotels. So what I'll do is I'll go in and talk to the facility managers and the engineers. Many times, a lot of my service contractors will bring me in on their behalf to talk to an owner. And when I do that, I always make it clear to my customer, my service contractor, that I'm not gonna backdoor you or go around you. I'm there on your behalf. And a lot of times I just wear a Q-PAC shirt and pretend like I'm from Q-PAC. I deal with engineers. Don't deal with engineers, mechanical engineers as much as, I don't spend a lot of time with them, if I'm being honest. The retrofit market is not really a place where design engineers are laying out systems. Now they'll do it, I understand they'll do it for 200,000 CFM units, big penthouse, they're gonna retrofit or they're gonna do something like that. But I don't spend a ton of time with engineers because they're pretty thick-headed, right? And I'm an engineer. I guess I can say that. Honestly, if I go in and have an opportunity to sit down with an engineer and they give me the time, and I'll get into this a little bit, how I go to my customers, if given that opportunity, I feel strongly I can convince them it's the right solution. And I've had there's one engineer in Orlando, he's not here, and he just doesn't want anything to do with ECM fans. So I don't deal with them. All right, so who are our customers? I say everybody. So I didn't put this slide up to brag by any means, but what I did do is I compiled I keep a running list of every job that I've sold in Orlando, Central Florida. And it really stems from Orlando to Daytona, is that small market, right? It's not a huge market. It's not New York City. It's not Boston. It's not Dallas, and I've done over 125 retrofit installs, but the key takeaway here is the total CFM is, I'm almost at 2 million CFM of retrofit air that I've retrofitted in Central Florida, but my average CFM is 15,000 CFM. So 15,000 CFM 4 fans. That's my average unit over 125 plus retrofits. So everybody, what I'm trying to help you guys understand is it doesn't, yeah, Frank.
Out of those jobs, is it hospitals?
So, perfect question. It might be glare. I don't know if you guys can see it, but hospitals, I have 50 units in hospitals. Amusement parks, I have 27 units. K through 12, 21 units. Higher education, I don't need to read the slides to you guys. You guys can see it. So I started with the hospitals. That was kind of, critical applications. That's where it all started for me was, and truth be told, I was selling custom air handling units to hospitals. I was selling, retrofit with Hunt Air at that time with AC motors and VFDs. So I have good relationships in that market. So hospitals just lends itself to redundancy, right? And everything Q-PAC has. So, but that was the key takeaway on this slide is it's average of 4 fans per unit. So you don't need to look for these huge units. Any unit we can be so creative in what we do and what Q-PAC does. You can basically retrofit almost any unit. It's not 100%, but I'd say 90+%. All right, how do I go to market? A couple of my keys to success, in my opinion, is I partner with service contractors. I got a couple of service contractors in the group, and I think they can attest to this. I partner up with my contractors, and I go out and I do presentations. You guys may or may not all have seen the demo. The demo unit, like it shows right here on the slide. Get yourself a demo unit. It fits in your car. It breaks down. I have a small SUV. It breaks down, put it in the back of the car, and talk to your customers. So I go out and do presentations to my service contractors. I'll do turnkey installs, which I'm dealing directly with an owner, specifically some of the hospitals. And truth be told, it's easier for them to give me a purchase order and do it turnkey as opposed to going through a contractor, because then they got to put it out to bid, right? So the way they get around over $50,000 threshold mark or whatever that threshold is, you got to get 3 bidders, et cetera. They come to me and do it turnkey. So I'll hire my service contractor, or I kind of spread it around a little bit, and I'll do turnkey installs. I said, go out and do a presentation with a demo, and most importantly, have a little passion. When you go out, understand the product, right? Be an expert at what you're selling, and then have some passion. And if you get out there and show some passion, the customers see it, and they just want to buy. And I feel like I have a lot of passion for Q-PAC. It's easy to do with this team that Q-PAC has, because every single person, I know almost everybody. I think I know everybody in this room that I'm looking at from Q-PAC, and I know some of the guys on the floor. So they're awesome. So it's easy to have passion about a product that you're selling because you're backed up by a great team, okay? I'm not getting paid to do this slide, I promise you, Matt. Oh, and so another thing that I do, now, I don't do slideshow. I don't even have a slideshow presentation for Q-PAC. So I go out with my demo, and I bring this little book, and this book basically has pictures and some stuff, some jobs, a list of my jobs, and I keep that record. So it kind of gives me a track record to show to the customers how to be, that we're successful. So make yourself a little book, get on the road. All right, field survey and sizing. So this is me. Kurt took this picture of me when I was at a job site, unbeknownst to me. But pretty obvious what to bring to a job site. I don't even know why I really left this in there, but do bring a light. So, I have a little, like a neck headlamp. It just makes things so much easier when you're inside a unit with the tape measure and your notebook. You have one less thing to hold. So, but I did create this field survey and sizing sheet. Primarily, and I highlighted the 5 things that we need to know, right? When you're out doing a survey, looking at a unit, whatever you're doing, you really only need 5 things to be able to work up a price, right? The width, the height, CFM, total static, and voltage. So we go into quips, and we can get a price, right? It makes it sound easy. Matt and team here thinks anybody can do this. It's not that easy, because you have to actually have a brain and use your brain, and there's engineering involved when you're out at a job site. So it's not as easy as it looks, but we can dumb it down as much as we can. So this field survey sheet is really helpful. I give this to my service contractors. And the reason I do is my service contractors, like the two guys I have here, they're as far as I'm concerned, they work with me. They work for me. They're my sales guys. They're out selling Q-PAC for me and bringing jobs in, right? And say, hey, I got this great opportunity, because service contractors have sales guys that work for them, right? So, and I know there's some other customers in here, but for us reps that are dealing and trying to deal with contractors, educate them. They'll go out and they'll be your best sales guys. And next thing you know, you've got a nice team working for you, looking for opportunities. Because service contractors are out there a lot of times getting maintenance contracts, which is not to belittle that, but maintenance contracts, if changing filters aren't as lucrative for them as it is changing out an air handling unit, right? Or changing or retrofitting an air handling unit, or doing coils, So this is a good tool. It has some rules of thumb on there. I'm not going to read them to you, but I put the pictures on there because as simple as it is, sometimes you just don't even know what type of fan you're looking at. So when I want to price up a job, I never, ever want to price a job up, sell a job only to find out it's not a good application, okay? I have of the 125 plus installs, I think one of those installs, I did not personally measure that unit. So I'm out there measuring every unit, but to price up a unit, I don't need to do that. So you can put some caveats on there, and this will help you do it. Any questions? Oh, that's a great question. I don't have a flat rate, but I can tell you, with the exception of a couple of units that we ended up really refurbishing the inside of the unit, changing the coils, and if we're just doing a fan wall replacement, a fan replacement, I would say under 12 hours is my time. I tell my customers in front of owners that your downtime will be under 12 hours. And honestly, it's gonna be 6 to 8 hours is what it is. No. So probably 4, depending on the size of the unit. If the unit, actually 20,000, 30,000 CFM units are one of my examples is gonna show you at one of the universities that I'll show you here. They did 4 units. It's the guys sitting here in the crowd today. They did 4, I think they had 5 guys on site under 7 hours. So from when they go in at night, shut the unit down, lock and tag it out, demo, airflow the next day, it was under 7 hours for each unit. And that's typical of where we're at. So I have no problem telling owners, I've done several at 50 at the hospitals, right? At OR rooms, we shut down at 10, 11 o'clock at night. We're up and running by 7 in the morning. We have airflow. Now, we may not be under full control, right, with the way that we do it, but with hand mode, potentiometer, you can get airflow, and then controls can come in later and actually, hook up the controls and do what life safety comes in, does what they have to do. All right. Do you guys know what the rule of 45s are when designing an air handling unit? Yes, I see some yeses. Rule of 45s, okay? Very simple. You can see from the top, here's our 45-degree angle, and then here's a plan view with angles from the side of the coil. So you really you do not want to get any closer than a 45-degree angle from the top and the sides of a unit to the inlet of your fans, okay? So in this particular case, this is kind of a square unit. So what was driving that distance for a single fan system is going to be from the top of the coil, right? You see, if I'm at 45 here, I have plenty of distance. And so if you bring this closer, this becomes 35, right? So that's the angle you want to focus it on, okay? So then you go to a fan wall, and truth be told, it's not just Q-PAC, right? You go with multiple fans in an airstream, you can get closer to a coil. Downstream, again, a typical rule of thumb is going to be approximately, I think 2 to 3. I took this slide from Q-PAC, at least 1 fan diameter. I'm going to say you probably want 2 to 3 fan diameters before you're blowing through a coil or filter or something like that. You can get much closer with multiple fans. The idea is that you don't want to get too close. You need to access that fan. So really, me getting close to the fan and accessibility is going to really drive that distance. Okay.
Can I ask a question real quick?
Yeah. Where are we at?
Over here. When you're looking at retrofit applications, I might be wrong about this. Q-PAC guys can answer. My understanding is that Q-PAC doesn't make any recommendation as to how the angle gets secured into the existing floor or walls. How do you usually approach that with your contractor in terms of suggesting to them what should be done?
So A little off on that. They do recommend how to do it, right? But they don't provide the fasteners to do it. Kind of the same thing, right? So because you don't know if it's going to be metal or concrete or what it's going to be, right? So, but they do provide pre-drilled holes that are in that spot of where you need to go, every 8 inches or whatever it is on center. So if it's going into steel, then the same fasteners we're using for the wall is good enough. And I'll just tell them use the same size fasteners, whatever, number 12 or whatever that is. I don't know what size it is. If it's going into concrete, it's they're using Tapcon or whatever they're going to use, something of the same thickness and gauge as what it is. So that would be my recommendation. But I always do tell them that we don't provide those fasteners, but we do actually show you where they go because they have the laser cut holes on that. So the angle has two sides, obviously two sides, right? One side has all the pre-cut holes. The other side's flat. That flat side is where the bulkhead wall attaches to, with the pre-cut holes in the bulkhead wall. So you're drilling into actual metal, not a pre-drilled hole. Yeah.
Just to add on that, so like for the ceiling, like if it's a unit with like spray foam panels, right? And so the interior of the unit's just like a skin.
Yeah.
What do you do in that scenario to fasten to it? You just send it with a bunch of screws.
Essentially, yes, right? But what we do, I run into that a lot with units that will have single wall, essentially, right? And they'll drill from the outside in, so that those screw heads are facing inside. So when you don't go up to the unit and have a bunch of screws sticking on the outside. So they'll actually drill from the outside in, is the recommendation. If it's in the ceiling and you can't get above the unit, just drill right out, let it fly. One thing that I don't think is in the actual IOM is I don't think they talk about putting caulking on your thing. I always recommend to my contractors to put a good bead of caulk on the bottom of that angle, that perimeter angle, because inevitably when you're in old units, it's wavy, right? They're never level, and you never create a good seal. Put a good bead of caulking, let it come out, clean it, and it just gives you a good seal. A lot of times on the floor, we're coming in that supply fan was your drain pan. Your wall is now going to become part of a bulkhead, part of a dam, right? So you want to caulk that really well. And
in terms of moisture exposure, right? I mean, that's all galv, right?
yeah.
So have you ever done jobs where we use bulkhead material of stainless or aluminum or something like that?
We don't do stainless yet. We don't do stainless steel. They don't have I don't think the machinery can do the cuts with stainless yet, 14 gauge. But what I do is I coat the bulkhead of the wall. So I send it to Bethel Products in Florida here, and they do a coating. It's a 15,000 hour salt spray coating. It's really good. It's 30,000 CFM unit. To coat it would be about $2,300 sell price to coat. It was an 8-fan system. Actually, I did that on one of the jobs that the guys in the back did. We coated the bulk. So we not only coat the bulkhead, we coat everything that's galvanized, we coat in the unit, including the Quick Connect. Bethel Products.
Could we get that as like a Q-PAC option?
Q-PAC, I don't know. Blake's our special guy. What do you think?
And we're going to talk about some things we're looking at. One of the options we're considering is stainless. Maybe not expected for over a year, but it's on the books. It's on our roadmap to explore. It's all about the need, right? Like if there's a need for it, then we'll invest the time and materials to develop it. So if you do come across those situations where you absolutely have to have it, don't just say, oh, sorry, I can't do it. Let us know, and that gives us a data point to push that higher than priority list.
Yep. And the place that, like Bethel, I was telling you about, I'll send it to them. They'll take the back plates off of the unit, and they'll coat the back plates. If it's a Ziegelbeg fan, I've done some Rosenberg fans, and they coated anything galvanized. They coated, so and then they put it back together. So it's an option, and one of the example jobs I have on here shows that as well. All right, so this particular job, who in here has put doors in the bulkhead wall of their units? You got a few hands raised. Did you know we could put doors? Blake's gonna love me for this, but Blake's happy to put doors in. I would probably say at least a third, if not more, of my unit, I have a door in the bulkhead wall. So this particular example, 52,000 CFM, and it's got a door in the bulkhead wall. This is one large unit serving the entire space at an amusement park. If this single fan fails, they lose airflow and the ride shuts down. Not good, right? So and you can see in the pictures, it's just, just your typical unit, typical big unit. And we've got the door to enter. And right when you walk through this door to the left is our coil. So the door, access door, gets us to the fan, the motor, and the coils, right? So after we demo out the fans, I'm showing you the VFD here because what we're going to do is put the panel, Q-PAC panel, the control panel, in place of where the VFD is. And the wire is already coming from the VFD into the unit. So we're going to reuse those wires. In this case, we have 10 fans. So we have 2 quick connect boxes. So we're going to have to run 2 power lines in. So that was an adjustment that's not typical. Run a couple power. Can you see on this right here? This concrete pad, the inertia pad, and that's concrete right there. That wasn't there originally. So, rather than trying to chip out, I had to put the wall right in the middle of this where I added that concrete. It's rather than chipping out the other pad, they elected to just fill it in, the week before. So it's about a foot wide, and they just went 2 feet to the wall, and they just filled it in with concrete. So when they demoed it, now we're gonna have a spot for our angle to go, okay? And then you can see, the reason we have the door is once you put the wall in, you can't get to the fans. So we put a bulkhead door, so when you walk into the door, rather than putting a door on the outside, you always wanna try to not disrupt the outside of the unit as much as possible, right? For downtime, for integrity and everything else. So we'll put the door on the bulkhead wall. And this is our final product with you can see the 2 quick connects here. So the contractors, it's always make sure if you're talking with your contractor and you have 2 quick connects, right? Make sure they understand they have to run that extra set of wire, right? Or 2 sets of wire, power wire, over to the quick connect, and you gotta run 2 sets of control wire. What they did on this job is they ran 2 sets of 8 conductor control wire, but in the same conduit. So you can see they ran the control wire in and then continued the second set over to the other quick connect. So rather than running extra conduits, they ran the 16 conductor wires in the same conduit. If you haven't ever seen what it looks like to do, and there's some panels inside, but so it's still single point power from the building to the unit, but it's 2 points of power coming to your quick connect.
How did you know the CFM and static was really old?
That's what I do. That's exactly what I do a lot of times. The actual static listed was 4 inches, right? So I max it out to see what I can get with those fans, right? Because if you're gonna, it's a great question, because sometimes you don't know. I did know. Well, I had data from the original plans of the design of this building that the owner gave me, and we knew that we were at 52,000 and it was 4.1 inches. So I always do that, and I'll run it up to see where we max out, and I still gave them 91% redundancy there. They're actually operating this system at 65% speed. Running full speed, running where they're at. So yeah, that's good. That's a good pickup because a lot of people wouldn't pick up on that, but it's intentional. So a lot of times if you don't know, parlaying on to that question, if you don't know what your CFM is, I'll go in and measure the coil face area, right? I'll measure the coil face area. I'll do my math, come up with what it should be, max. I'll count the filters, right? Kind of see where the filters, do another check there. And then you gotta use your engineering brain a little bit and think about what type of system we're dealing with. How long's the static? How long's the run? Maybe they have some data what their external static pressure is going to be. They run at 1.5 inches. You go through all those checks and balances internally in your head, and then you get your selection. And then I try to max out that fan and see if I'm off, what kind of room do I have? And then if I need to go to a different fan, I go to a different fan to do that. Yeah, it's great. Yeah.
Run into that same issue, and so if we're budgeting the project, we'll throw $1,500 in there for T&B. If it moves to the PO phase, we'll just bring a T&B contractor. But for $1,500 at the conversation phase, we just throw that in there.
That's great. That's an awesome point. I always do the same thing where I'll do a pre-T&B and a post-T&B. But the thing is, the pre-T&B is not going to tell you everything. The reason they're replacing it is because they're not getting the airflow that they need. So the pre-T&B, it just gives you a kind of a litmus test. Like, okay, I'm at 50. We pre-T&B and we're at 38,000 CFM, right? Because they're losing airflow. They got something. You know what I mean? The belts are loose. I mean, whatever it might be, right? So great point. But always, I tell the contractors, do a pre-T&B so you have a baseline. because we're just replacing the fans and then do a post TMB and then you'll see where you're at. It protects you. Yes, yeah, exactly. So, and it's not a TMB of the system, it's a TMB at the air handler level. Right? So, and I have my own pressure ports, tubing, gauge. So when I go to job sites, a lot of times I'll bring my gauge. If I don't know the CFM, I'll at least know what pressure we're running at this particular one. Most of us in here probably can do fan laws and figure out, like, if we're off, here's where we're at, and we figure out where you're going to be. Great questions, guys. All right. This is the job that was, I did 8 fans. This is 30,000 at about, again, see, I kind of maxed out where we're at. 30,000 at 6.9 inches static, and we have 8 fans. What's unique about this one is, and something to look for that you may never think about, you see the access door? The access door is very tall and very skinny, right? So I think Kurt took a picture of me on this one, right? I measured the access door. Always measure your access door. You need to know what you're putting fans in, and maybe in demo, you have part of the unit apart, but you might need to replace that fan someday. So you want to make sure you pick a fan that's gonna be replaced. 15.5 inches. So 076 fans are 15 inches deep. So I pick an 076. This is part of the demo. It was easier for them to just remove one section of duct, because at the discharge of the unit, the duct connection was right there. So they just dropped the duct on this unit. This is a unit, there were 4 of these units, they were identical, slightly different CFM ranges. And this is the unit that they demoed and installed and had airflow in 7 hours. So you can see it's demoed on the picture on the right, and you can see the power wire coming in. So you want to make sure you put your quick connect on that proper side. Right? Always make sure you're looking at everything when you're inside the unit. And then using caulking, putting the caulking in as he needs to. This system was powder coated. Well, with Bethel was the 15,000 hour coating that we did. So you can kind of see it's a little off-white. So he asked how do they coat the back plate on the unit, on the fan itself, this actual plate. So the plate in the inlet cone I think is aluminum, but the plate, so they take the plate off, and because the Blue Zeal fan's already powder coated, right? They don't touch that. But they take off the back plate, powder coat it. They powder coat all the angle, hang it up, and then they let it dry, and then they reinstall it. Now they did reinstall it backwards once. They flipped the fan around, so that was not an issue. We just caught it Ricky caught it during install. Again, another unit with a door. It's an office building. What's unique about this one is, so they laid it out on the floor just to make sure everything was good, but this fan arrangement, so this is what we would call a top-back discharge. If anybody worked with Train, or that's kind of where I learned the fan orientation, is discharge is up the top of the fan's towards the back of the unit. So call this a top-back discharge. The red line, I put the red line in there so you can see that's where our walls needs to go in this system. And we again, to get into the unit, and we have the door. They had plenty of space. What they did is they capped the opening and moved the opening down in the airstream. They had plenty of room in the air handler. The supply duct came over top, and then it went over to where that opening is. So all they had to do was just go straight into the bottom of that duct that was there. So it was really easy, pretty inexpensive, and they attempted to put a bell mouth opening, but it's sticking down on the unit about 6 inches, so it's probably not doing a whole lot there. So you can see the wall's right in the middle of this opening. So one other thing I wanted to show you is, if you guys look at all the angles, you can see on the roof, there's all kinds of structural steel on the roof, vertically, horizontally on the walls. So as we get through this, if you zoom in, see how we notched the bulkhead here? We do this a lot. So this is going to this had insulation. It has closed cell insulation. They're going to come back and put closed cell insulation, but this is on the vertical. This is our vertical angle. So this is structural in the unit. So you can notch around it. And then again up here in the ceiling, they had to notch around that, right? So there are a lot of cases where you need to pay attention to what's on the floor. When you take the fan sled out, when they demo and they take the fan sled out, sometimes old units have along the edge of the outside of the unit, have the floors down, and then it comes up an inch and over. You need to notch. The contractor needs to notch part of the bulkhead. It's easy to do. It's 14 gauge metal, but we need to work with Blake to make sure you have enough distance so that they don't put one of their posts right there where you have to notch. You never want to notch where the post is, right? So again, getting inside a unit, and this is why we collectively, when we're out looking at units, you got to look at everything when you're inside a unit, and what are the challenges, and just put yourself in a frame of mind of how, if I were installing this, what challenges am I going to have? And then you'll be okay. Any questions?
What was the static pressure on
Yeah.
that?
So for those that might not have heard, how do we adapt inside of an air handler where, one side you might be at 99 inches, the other side you're at 100 or 199 and a half, 99 and 3/4, right? So it's slightly off, but enough off. And in the larger units, I always take multiple measurements throughout the unit, the width of the unit, right, for the height. Because just that, a lot of times they sag in the middle. And sometimes you can force it up a little bit. I'll go to the smaller, and then we'll have to adjust with the angle. So if you're in a larger unit like that, you're already going to the bigger angle anyway. So Q-PAC changes their angle 1 inch to 1.5 inches. They used to be 2 inches, but now it's like 1.5 inches. So as you go bigger, over 60 inches, you go to bigger angles, right, for support. So usually you can make that up. So get the smaller of the inside dimension within reason, and then go from there. The other thing that has happened on a couple of occasions is, it's 14 gauge metal, so they can trim. So the way that look at one of the panels if you haven't. The way the panel's made and the post comes together, where two panels come together, you have about 1 inch on the top and the bottom. So with the way the panel goes in, it sits in on the floor, and that post sits on that angle. Trim the top a little bit, right? Don't trim the bottom because you might be uneven. Trim the top to get it because you just might be off a little bit. So that's always a possibility, but get your true ID of the unit so you can make your angles right, and then Q-PAC builds in the tolerances in their system. They put it on the submittal as well. Yeah, Frank?
If you got a newbie contractor, make sure they put the angle on the negative side so the bulkhead pushes against it.
Yeah.
I had one that pushed away.
Yeah, and make sure you turn the angle the right way, right? So you want to have your angle going towards the coil, not towards the fans, right? And yes, you want to make sure, that's a great point. Make sure that because it sits in like this and it pushes against the angle, you would never want to put it on the opposite side. Good questions.
Did you give any consideration in that?
The question was, did we do any consideration? Because right now the entire section's a negative, right? And this is all the units I've done, I'm not lucky enough to get a plenum fan every single time. If I see a plug fan, I'm super excited because it's a plug fan and I know it's going to work. So that's what I tell my contractor. If you see a plug fan, we're good. Just get the inside dimension and we'll worry about everything later. We're good. We're not that lucky. We don't have enough plug fans that we're replacing right now. So most times they're double width, double inlet fans, and which is what we have here. So yes, you're changing from half that section is going to be positive, which was all negative. And you're gonna create issues that the owner never knew he had, because you're gonna get sweating outside the unit and you're gonna get air leaking. So I always put on my quotes, you need to, contractor must seal the inside of the unit. If they have to put angle or some sheet metal or patch any holes, you need to seal that. And it's always advantageous to tell the customer, this is what's gonna happen and you're gonna be positive. I'm not so worried about the static. What is static going to blow the unit up? I don't worry too much about that because a lot of these units are very robust and can handle it. If I was doing 9.5 inches of static, I would need to really look at the unit. So my last example is one of my favorite examples to show. It's only 9,000 CFM. So the bulkhead wall, you can't see it, but this is 34 inches by 100 inches. We'll just remember that. And we are at 9,000 CFM, 4.5 inches. This is at a hotel. This is the unit. So this is the before picture. I looked at this unit and I said, there's no way we can do Q-PAC and retrofit this unit. I mean, I would think most of you would probably agree with that. I did retrofit it, so there is a way. But, the fan, the motor is outside the unit. You've got your belts, you've got your shaft going through. And I thought originally maybe I'll put the wall on an angle, that point to that point. Had no idea how we would mount it, how we would access the fans. I just, could it work? In theory, yes, it could work. But I did notice that the height, we had about 40 inches of height right here. So I said, well, what if we remove that duct right? So this is the duct removed in your fan. And I said, what if we, so this is an old train unit. I don't know if anybody recognizes it. It's like, it is literally like 10 gauge metal. It's a beast. It's gonna last, it's probably 40 years old, and it's probably gonna last another 40 years. But it's up at a hotel in a penthouse, sandwiched in between multiple units. So doing a custom unit, even though I have a custom air handler line that ships knocked down and field built everything, it just made it way too expensive. So I said, what if we open this up here and open it up, take out the fan and clean up the inside of the unit, because you see how disgusting it is, and make this 34 inches by 100 inches open, right? And we lay our fans down horizontally, and then have the contractor build a plenum box around it, and then connect a plenum box, right? And then connect their flex duct to it. So you can see the fans are laid down horizontally from inside. They cleaned out the coil area, the drain pan, et cetera. And this is before and after. So we got access panels. So this is a plenum box made by the contractor. My fans are sitting up on top, horizontal, and then this is just all empty. So we get really good airflow coming through the unit, through the coil, discharging up, and then they got a flex connector to the existing ductwork. And it was not that much money for him to build that plenum box. So that's one of my favorite ones to talk about, because you just thinking outside the box, right? You literally are thinking outside the box and figure out what to do. And I would love to have sold him a new custom air handling unit with Q-PAC in it. But as a result of this, we've sold 2 or 3 more at this facility. And they weren't as bad as this. But like the other ones that I sold, I don't have examples of. We ended up building a plenum box on the end to get a little bit more airflow and access to it, and then tapped into the duct on the top. So that's it. That's all I got today.